Hi, we're going to go over lesson 4.1 and 4.2 today. We're going to start with talking about a coordinate system. There's two types. There's a 2D coordinate system and a 1D coordinate system. So go ahead and get your notes and let's start filling in some of the information. So on your next quiz, I'm going to ask you, what is a 2D coordinate system and what is a 1D coordinate system? So make sure you know a 2D coordinate system just means it has two axes. So what is it called when you have two axes? This is a coordinate plane. Whenever you only have one axis, this is called a number line. So when you are dealing with your coordinate plane, you have 4 different quadrants. So you start 1 up in this top corner and you go counterclockwise 2, 3, and 4. You need to know what this is called here at 0, 0. This is called your origin. And if you've forgotten, go ahead and write this in. This is your x-axis and this is your y-axis. So, I also went through and talked about how this is a plus quadrant because from 0, 0 you go over plus and then you go up plus. Quadrant 2 is a minus plus quadrant because you go over toward the negatives and then up in the positives. Quadrant 3 is a negative negative because you go negative on the x and then down negative on the y. And lastly, 4 is plus minus because you go over positive and then you go down negative. So we need to make sure you understand the distance formula. So the distance formula is on your theorem sheet. So you can always use it and have it handy. Now, a couple things about it. Like if you happen to switch those two little sections and put the y2 minus y1 first in the equation, it really makes no difference. So this is what I'm saying. If you put the y2 here, does it really make a difference? And the answer is no. And so sometimes I have kids that say, can I switch the y2 and y1? And you know what? You can. Now, so as long as you're subtracting them. So if I start with the first one and subtract the second one, that's fine. But down here with the x's, I need to take the first one and then subtract the second one. So even if you get a negative when you square it, it becomes positive again. So there's lots of different ways to have an equation that works. Okay, so we need to predict. Now I know the answer's on the screen. How did we know this answer was 4 with a prediction from this distance? And let's just call this from A to B. And it's simply because you're going over 4 units. From 0.8 to 4.8 is 4 units over to the right. So let's practice this and see if you get the right answer. So I would encourage you to pause the video, don't look at the work, and plug it into the distance formula and see if you can get 4. So go ahead and pause it now. Okay, so hopefully you're back from pausing the video. And if you didn't get 4, look at my work, see what I did differently. On mine, I'm pretty sure I did an equation that's not listed. I took the x's and I did x1 minus x2 and I squared it. And I did y1 minus y2 and I squared it. But I get the same answer as if I used any of the other ones. So here's what it boils down to. Subtract the x's and square it. Subtract the y's and square it and add those together. And then just square root that answer. Okay, so I need you guys to pick the calculator you're going to use. Now, if you're using the yellow calculator, for instance, let's just type in something random. Let's type in the square root of 19. And if you push enter on the yellow class calculators, it still says the square root of 19, which isn't very helpful if you're wanting a decimal. So what you need to do is push the white button above the enter over on the lower right-hand side, and it's going to convert it to a decimal. And if you hit it again, it takes it back to root form. All right, let me do that real quick. And hopefully you get 4.3588 on and on. Okay, so again, I would like for you to try to find the distance between A and C. And I just labeled C for you. Again, I know my work's on the paper. Please just try it, see if you can do it, because the way we're doing homework now, you are going to be penalized some if you get it wrong. So pause the video and try it. Okay, so hopefully you're back and you've tried this. Now, some of this got cut off. This is the square root of 41. And if you type it into the yellow calculator, it just says square root of 41. So you're going to have to push the white arrow button above enter, and you get 6.4. And so on your homework, I'm going to ask that you round it to one decimal place, which is called the tenths. So hopefully that all makes sense, and you can do that on your assignment. Okay, so on this one, you're going to plot the points and then find the distance between all of the segments, or all the points. I'm sorry, you're going to find the distance between the points, which is the length of the segment. Okay, so when I did this during class yesterday, what I did is I had each row in the class do a different section. So don't find them all. Just pick one. Pick A to B, pick A to D, B to C, or C to D, and see if you can get the answer. Again, I'm just wanting you to practice so you do it correctly on your homework. So you have my answer here. See if you can get the same answers. Okay, so moving on, we're going to talk about a polygon. So a polygon is any shape that has at least a connected with at least 3 segments, and they have to be in the same plane, and each segment intersects exactly 2 others at the endpoints. So we're going to go through and decide if they are polygons or not, and if they're not, we're going to say what's wrong with them. So as you can see, this very first one is a polygon. This is a kite. It works. So yeah, it works. So why is the second one a no? I know you can probably see through this little box here. Why is it no? So you have the reasons up above here, and I tried to highlight them. Is this made of segments? And hopefully you're saying no. So number 2 needs to have segments, so there's no segments. So what's wrong with number 3? Ooh, I can move that. There we go. Number 3 is in multiple planes, and up here it says they need to be in the same plane. So 3D objects don't really work. Then number 4, if I were just to give you the triangle and say, is that a polygon? You would say yes. But really, this is not just 2 triangles. This is one shape. And if you notice here in the middle, they intersect, but it's not at the end point. So what I wrote here, and I was having trouble wording it eloquently, I said intersects in the middle. It doesn't intersect at the endpoints. So it's a no. And for number 5, the answer again is no, because it has to be a connected set. It's not connected. It's called being an open figure. Okay, so now we're going to start with this chapter talking about how polygons and more specifically triangles are congruent with each other. So when a figure is congruent, and this is a congruent symbol over here, it's not a very pretty one. Let's see if I can make it better. That's a better one. When triangles are congruent, or any figure is congruent, what it means is that, this is important, you need to write this down. When it's congruent, all the sides are equal in length. And I don't mean they all have to be the same. I mean, corresponding sides are equal. So they have a side that matches up the same measurement. And the corresponding angles are all equal. So, for instance, when you look at this polygon, this, of course, is not a triangle, but it's a polygon. It has matching and corresponding angles. And so I marked them already. So like angle A is congruent to angle J. So they're not only corresponding, they're congruent. So angle A is, now actually your book says they're equal to angle J. Now when you get to we'll get there. There is something that's congruent, but that's in a minute. And we could do this to every single one. E is equal to angle F. And angle D is equal to angle G. Now, we can keep doing this. There's the 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 different ones. Actually, let's just finish. That's a C. Angle C is equal to angle H. And lastly, angle B is equal to angle G. Now, we also have corresponding and congruent sides. So, for instance, what side matches up and is congruent with AB? And hopefully you're saying JI. Now, it doesn't really matter if you say AB or BA. Either way is fine. And the same thing for IJ or JI. What side matches up with AE? Hopefully you're saying FJ. And we're going to do this to all 5 sides. DE corresponds and is congruent to GF. BC is corresponding and congruent to HI. And lastly, CD is corresponding and congruent to GH. Okay, so whenever I give you a figure like this and I tell you they're congruent, you need to know that you're supposed to match up all the angles and the sides, and the corresponding angles and sides are congruent. All right, moving on. So I've already talked about this. When you have congruent figures, there must be a correspondence. Remember, they have to match up between the vertices, which are the angles, such that the corresponding sides and angles are equal. Okay, we've already covered that. Now we have the corollary to the definition of congruent triangles. This says that if you have triangle 1 is congruent to triangle 2, and triangle 2 is congruent to triangle 3, this is like substitution. Since they both have triangle 2 in common, what's left? I take triangle 2 out, replace it with triangle 3. So triangle 1 is congruent to triangle 3. So it's like substitution for triangles. Okay, and it's a corollary, so that means it's usually pretty common sense. Now, we're wrapping up the lesson. What I have boxed here, this is called a congruence or a congruency statement. Now, since there are 3 letters, that means it's a triangle, which we deal with the most often. And the order matters. So this is important. Order matters. So the order will tell you everything. Notice there's not a picture. You don't need a picture if you have a congruency statement. For instance, the first letter here, A, is corresponding and congruent with the next first letter, which is D. So I wrote angle A is equal to angle D. Next, I have angle B, and it's the second letter, so it's corresponding and congruent to angle E. And lastly, I have angle C. It's corresponding congruent with F. Now, this also tells the side links. Take the first two letters, A to B, and take the first two letters of the next triangle, D to E. And so we know that they are equal. Take the second and third letter of each, and we know that they are equal. And then lastly, the first letter and the last letter. And so you know how much information. You know 6 things, 6 pieces of information just by your congruency statement. All right, so we are finished. Yay. Okay, so homework's going to be different. I made online assignment, and it is on Canvas. It's kind of like a quiz. It will grade it instantly for you. And I have made them for the entire chapter, even though they're not all posted, but I'll get them posted. And as I made them, I became better at making them. So in the beginning, you're having to type in a lot of the answers, but later in the chapter, it's going to be more like you click on it and you get to pick from answers. So it's going to be easier. So I'm going to give you 2 attempts. So it's going to average the 2 scores. And I know like Algebra 2 does this as well. So if you and it will tell you the answers, that may change. We'll see how it goes. But after you submit the first time, it'll show you the answers. If you would like to retry it, you can, get the new score and have it averaged. So, this is good, because some kids will just hit submit just to get the answers. So they have a 0 and they do it again and they get a perfect score. Well, if it's averaged, they really only get a 50%. So it's to encourage you to do well the first time, but if you want to, up your grade a little bit and see what you did wrong, you can still do that. So I know there's probably going to be issues, like if you type in a word plural or not plural. I'm going to make you a list of all the words you can use, and I think that might help. But I will take care of a lot of these issues next class. And I'll say, what issues did you have? And I can open on my computer and we can fix it right then and there. So just keep a list of issues that you have, and then we can go over it at the beginning of our next class. And I think it'll be a lot easier to know what, the book is asking for, the way that I have it set up for the rest of the chapter. All right. So obviously I'm not here, but you can text me if you have any help or need any help. And I will see you guys next class. Bye.